feel like you go into an episode and you just know the quality is coming, and you just have to sit back and relax, or try to relax, because it's also a lot of tension, and enjoy what they're giving you. So like, and I'm so happy that we did a double feature, by the way. The Nace is on point in both episodes. But I think we should start with Ace and his bonding with Grant.
Oh,
Yes.
loved it. Loved it.
It was so sweet. I'm glad that they just went full steam ahead on that and didn't beat around the bush. I think these 2 episodes were, dare I say, 2 of my favorite of the series. They were so good. They were just so much fun to watch. And I was like invested in the Grant storyline, even though we don't really know him. I loved the montage of him being ignored, though, because it's something that like we've been noticing as viewers throughout, because we've seen all those scenes, but we got to see them from his perspective now, and that was funny, but
It
sad.
was. I didn't realize it had only been a week since he got hired. And his little face when like he's like, "Can we have lunch?" And he's just like, "I'll only get 30 minutes." Then proceeds to go over to his crew.
Yeah.
Ace was kind of mean, in like not in a mean way, but like just in an Ace way, just being like, "Oh, you need to do this. Oh, you should do this. Oh, I can't do that." He was just very dismissive, and it was his brother was right under his nose the whole time.
And it was quite effective showing it from his perspective, because we've seen Grant quite a few times on the show, and there was one scene where like Ace was angry and he kind of took out his aggression on Grant. I don't believe that made it into the montage, but it looked like an isolated incident at that point, whereas now you get to see that no, actually Ace was quite dismissive of Grant the whole time, because he didn't know. And I mean, you can't really blame him like that, but it made you get attached to Grant very, very quickly. And it was nice that there was, as far as I recall, there was no previously on this episode to catch you up. The montage did it all for you. So it was just a very, very effective. I really enjoyed the dynamic between them two right from the beginning.
It was very sweet. And I love how like immediately we're like, well, in the car when Ace initially thinks that his brother comes to him because he's the hero of Horseshoe Bay. He's like, actually, I just knew you'd be able to get Nancy to help me. So if we could just call her.
And then Nancy just like put everything together in like 15 minutes.
And that's why she's so amazing. And I actually like them as a trio too. They were really good for Shannon Cook to be coming into a show in which the cast had been, under each other, underfoot. I'm like, wait, what am I trying to say? That have been together for a while.
They're bonded.
Yeah, they're bonded, and but he slotted right in with Nancy and Ace, and I just really enjoyed that. Especially like I liked the moments alone with him and Ace, but I also liked his moments with Nancy where she was like trying to get him to see the way that they need to be doing things, even when she was in a panic. I also liked their scenes.
She's really good at caring about new people. Like she really cares about him, and I think that stems from her caring about Ace. But she also is just like, she loves to solve a puzzle, and solving her puzzles helps people, and that's what she really loves doing. And we've seen that growth in her, where maybe it used to be a little bit more selfish, but now she's grown. And I think we can, not to completely diverge off the different path, but we can see her changes, her evolution on screen, right? Because like Nancy's fashion has been elevated and evolved. Like she's in her ascot era with her neck scarves, and she has like different shoes on. She's not wearing the white Vans that get covered in blood and give everything away. Like she's like maturing a little bit, and I like that, the visual of it. It's a really like, it's a subtle aspect that you really just pick up on screen, just to see Nancy like looking different, holding herself differently, and expressing herself in a different way.
On the conversation with Nancy and Grant, where they were like trapped in the cave together, I thought that was a great moment, because it was an unusual break. You would have expected that maybe Ace or Grant were the ones that got trapped together, or Nancy and Ace would have been the two that got trapped together. But the fact that we got Nancy and Grant, and they had that moment where they kind of like talked about strategy. I thought Ace was going to go off and get help, but then they figured it out between the three of them themselves. And then you really saw the purpose of that scene, because Nancy was the first one out. She had absolutely no issues going to Ace. And then it was a real like trusting moment between Ace and Grant, where he was like, I'm your brother, I'm not going to let this fall on you. And then it all did collapse as soon as he got out. But they were very like comfortable with each other very, very quickly. And I feel like the fact that Grant could rely on S to save his life, even though S wasn't as forthcoming when he didn't know who he was, you know what I mean? He trusted that S was a good person, even though S hadn't exactly given the best first impression. Yeah, their dynamic was great, and I feel like Nancy enhanced it.
I like that for that moment, the thing that leads to it, I think for Grant to trust him is right before everything collapses and Ace is still trying to do like Star Trek, Star Wars, and Grant's like, why does it matter? And he's like, it's just like, I just want to know like your favorite color. And I think that was so very sweet. Like he's just trying to get the cliff notes of his brother in a way that's more than just bonding over trying to save Grant's mom. Which, by the way, I love that the case is still very Ace, because it's the list is trapped in a video game.
I know what you mean, and I feel like that created a lot of like awkwardly funny moments between them. And before we move on, then when I said about Ace taking helping Grant out of the cave, the fact then that they were just kind of like slumped on each other in a heap after that high intensity moment, and then Ace was like, "Which Ninja Turtle were you?" Totally an Ace moment. But yeah, this I feel like, of course, Grant was the star of this episode, but there was so much Ace in there, and that sounds like such a silly thing to say, but I just feel like this was the Ace episode I feel like we've been waiting for, and it was absolutely worth the wait.
It was.
And there's so much Nancy and Ace too, like subtle. Like they're not really knocking us over the head with it, but they're picking it up a little bit more in these two episodes. And I can't really differentiate 12 and 13, like the Nace of it all. I don't know what happened in which episode, but I know that they were like really starting to like nudge us and be like, this is happening, and everyone else is picking up on it. They're kind of have weird feelings about it. She has to save his life. Like she's not going to lose her Ace, which, my God. It's like, Nancy girl, don't get any ideas. We're saving Ace.
I want to see the picture that he took of her after they got done at the farm, because it surprised her, but she kind of just went on with it. I was like, I really want to see that Polaroid, actually, if you could just wave it so we can see. But also, besides those small moments, the big moment of her panic, and then the fact that he was shaken basically to his core because she crossed a moral boundary for him, and he wasn't prepared for the weight of that. I don't really know why he thought she was just gonna like not give the list as like, sir, you're about to fall to your death. She's definitely given this toy over. But I think the thing that really pushed him figuratively over the edge was that she knows she can't trust Celia. And she has no idea what Celia did to make sure all this would turn out okay. But she did it anyway because she can't lose him. I think that's a lot to take in as a person, for your friend to do, and for there to be not so quite subtle romance like in there. Like it was very obvious this has more to do with her romantic feelings for him than it does her friendly feelings for him.
She was confronted with the trolley problem in the moment, and she was like, I'm seeing Ace right now. I need to save him, and I'll deal with the other people later, which she did at what cost? I mean, it was a big cost that she had to make a deal with the devil, kind of. But it was the trolley problem, and I think for Ace it was like so clear. It's like, I'm okay with like sacrificing myself to save other people, but she was like, I can do it all. I don't know how, but I'm going to do it all to save everyone.
And that's what really intrigued me about their dynamic in this episode, because the two of them have had such a unique partnership in that they've kind of accepted each other, flaws and all. Whereas like Nick wanted Nancy to be better and to like learn from her mistakes and grow, whereas Ace just kind of like shrugged and accepted her for who she was. And the fact that now I feel like they've grown to care so much about each other now, that dynamic started to shift, in that Ace kind of like sees her in the same kind of way that Nick almost saw her, that she is capable of being like a better person, a great person at all of this. And then that step backwards really stuck out for him. So if you haven't been watching for Nace, I do feel like this would have been one of the moments where you really started paying attention to it, because of course Nancy was all emotional. She ran over and hugged him and would not let him go. We don't see Nancy hug people that tightly or that show that much emotion. So you know how much she cared about him, but almost Ace's decision to pull away, not physically, but like emotionally pull away a little bit. The fact that he was kind of like shocked by the fact that she'd gone to the dark side for help. You can definitely see the threads here for Nace in the future. And I think that made the episode really shine. Both of them. It's funny. Every time you pick a double parter, it always feels like part one and part two of the same story. And this one definitely felt like that.
Yes, moving into episode 13, we're dealing with the aftermath of the deal that Nancy made, in which she had to walk back. She recanted her statement, which then turned the town against her. And it's interesting that that's when we get Gil back. And what she tends to do, she tends to hide in the relationship she has when how she sees herself doesn't fit what's actually going on in her reality. So I wasn't necessarily surprised to see him, though they're very sweet with their little head touch they did. I was like, I'm still here for Nace, but that little moment was cute.
Yeah.
But it's you can tell she's ashamed, but like she can kind of just hide there with Gil. But the moment she sees Ace, which by the way, she was in a bomb outfit. Love that outfit she was in. Like the awkwardness and the shame around what had happened, and a little bit of insecurity over him seeing her with Gil after he had already told her that wasn't a good idea. That was interesting to see. She gave into the kiss with Gil, but she didn't quite like doing that in front of Ace. Also, she was jealous this episode, which I appreciated seeing.
Yeah. Yeah, no, we always say the show's been very subtle about it, but the fact that it lingered on us watching them kiss right before the opening sequence, there was nothing subtle about that, because obviously the pre-opening sequence is supposed to be a teaser of what's to come, and the fact that we had an adventure planned out, we had Nancy's reputation called into question, all of these interesting things going on, and yet it decided to hone in on us looking at them. You can't deny that. And what's really interesting is that, again, Ace always accepted her flaws and all, whereas he seems concerned about the time she's spending with Gil, because Gil kind of accepts her with going to the dark side in the way that Ace almost used to. But I feel like Ace kind of cares about her so much now, he wants what's best for her, and he can clearly see that Gil isn't that. We did learn throughout this episode that Gil isn't the best person to be around for anybody, to be honest.
And even Amanda is picking up on it on the Ace side. Like when they were listening into the safe, she's like, they're really connected on the same wavelength. What am I doing here? Even though Nancy and Ace in that moment, like their personal relationship isn't rock solid, because they're, he feels some kind of way. She's kind of like, I think naturally just pulling away from him, because she's like, oh, you're with Amanda, and oh, you're mad at me. But like at the end of the day, they still come together and they have this connection that I truly don't even think they're starting to, but I don't think they know what it is. And that's what makes this kind of like, this is the art of a will they or won't they. Like, I know I've said with Wendy, like it's the show, the show just makes me so excited to watch TV, because I'm like, oh, this is television. In these 2 episodes of Nancy Drew, like, it's just like chef's kiss. Like, this is why I love television, these 2 episodes. Like, if you're studying to write this kind of show, watch these 2 episodes. Like, these are like, the scripts were so good, the acting was so good. Don't think I'm not gonna praise Kennedy up and down in a couple of minutes here. And like the director, everything was so good about these episodes. It was so tight. They knew what they were doing. They knew the stories they were telling. Not a second was wasted. Not a second was like, did I think too much was happening? Like, it was just, these 2 episodes were so perfect. And I think 13 really, for me, might be it's going to be hard to beat this episode. It was just so good. I even loved the like story of the week plot where they're like helping this little girl who looked like Alexis Bledel, by the way. Did you guys get that?
I was trying to figure out who she reminded me of, but I couldn't land on a person.
I was like, Rory Gilmore, is that you? But yeah, I thought this episode was so special. Even like, I think sometimes fans can get frustrated when you're like, oh, the Nace is right there. It's in the palm of our hands. But there's something still so special about those episodes where they're not together yet. as frustrating as it can be, it's just like it's so magical to see the beginnings of this, and I feel like I can't put it exactly explain the way it made me feel, but it just made me it was electric. I just felt so good to watch the beginnings of this happening so subtly. Like they're really like it's the payoff is happening, and it's so exciting to watch.
And it definitely feels like they've kind of changed pace as far as it's gone into the middle of season 2, because subtle is the word we use when we talk about Nace. We've been singing the praises for the last season and a half, saying about how it's been so subtle, but they've definitely turned the dial up a little bit by having other characters notice it, and by having a few quirky moments between the two that you can't not notice. For example, when George and Bess were talking about Amanda, and Nancy's just in the background and says she's competent, and the little like smirk the two of them have at each other. I was like, wait, they know what's going on as well.
I love that.
It was so funny. I think part of me feels like Nancy knows a little about how she feels. I just don't. It's the
she
way
might not
she
be like
gazes.
willing. She might not be willing to like be that vulnerable, because I feel like she knows somewhere deep down, like this is different, right? This is different than anything she's felt, and I think that scares her, and she may not be fully into that realization, where it might be more obvious to the people around her and us, like we can see it, but I don't think she's willing to tap into that. She's busy, she's got stuff to do, she can't deal with that.
Well, and he's like her like right hand person. Like out of everybody, he seems to understand her best for the full spectrum of who she is. And they connect in a way that she doesn't quite connect with the rest of her friends. She loves all of them, but there's just a connection she has with Ace that is definitely growing, that is different, and that she appreciates. And perhaps that's why she gazes all the time. But I think she gazed in both episodes. It was just like, I need someone like record her and play back the video. But I think what makes Nace special is that it's the type of relationship that does transcend romance. They're the two types of characters that would really want to be in each other's lives, regardless of the status of their relationship. And I think that is something that Nancy needs and didn't always trust. That, like, regardless of where things land, I will always have this person. Just to get on my Drusen for like 1 second.
I was about to bring it up too, so thank you.
I do think her relationship with Nick actually is going to be the thing that makes her comfortable with attempting with Ace. I say that because she's learned how you can mess up a relationship and still maintain a friendship, and that might be something that's possible for her with Ace. But I also love that Drusen has grown into a friendship in which they can speak with one another and open up with each other, and Nick can say how he feels and recognize that he's losing Nancy, and keep an eye on her. Like, I love how this show has managed to navigate their romance, their falling out, their work towards friendship, and then actually being in a friendship that's very important to the both of them, to the point where he's like, girl, the white beanie's not going to make up for the fact that Cecilia is not a person you should trust. But I love the beanie watch for episode 13, though. I truly do.
Two things. I loved that scene with Nick and Nancy, because I don't know, it warms my heart so much, because as you know, I'm team Ace all the way, and I love Nick too, obviously. I think two of the best written male characters I've ever seen, beside the point. But that scene was so special because it feels like you could see the comfort that Nancy has with him, and she's opened herself up to that. Like, she knows that he's the person she can go to hear the hard stuff, and he's not gonna cater to her and tell her what she wants to hear. Like, he's that warmth. Like, she feels comfortable with him, and I just loved seeing that and the way that's gonna evolve. And the beanie, I screamed, because we've had Beanie Watch has been dry, but when it came back, I was like, oh, so the beanie is important. It's an important motif. And the fact that it's white while she's like going to the dark side is like, I need like an entire day to write a dissertation on what the symbolism, because it's so rich. And I also want to say, because I feel like this is something else that would get really frustrating for people, when you see like your hero kind of like go toward get a little darker, like have a little moral gray area. That's another thing that gets me so excited about watching television, is like sometimes it doesn't always like feel good in the moment. You get frustrated, but I think it's recognizing that if something makes you feel something either way, that's good. And being like frustrated and like yelling at the screen, like, Nancy, no, 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 girl, don't do that. I'm excited to watch TV. Like it reminds me of old school like TV, when like you get a season where the good character like goes a little bad and all their friends are like, what's going on with this girl? She's a hot mess. So I'm like excited to get to see not just Nancy but Kennedy play in this area and like grapple with her family. Like these are her roots, and Nancy's kind of been like pushing that to the side, and she saw a different side of her grandmother, and she wants to believe that, because I think something that we learned more so in this like story of the week, or the mystery of the week, is that um she has like all that trauma, right? And she like needs to find somewhere to put it, and she has these people that she's related to by blood, and it's natural to want to explore that, as bad as you think they are. And I think that's something that Bess dealt with too, like dealing with the Marvins. But yeah, I think I lost the thread just getting really waxing poetic about this episode.
But you're so right. I feel the same way, that it's Nancy has been such a complex character the whole way through, and she's done like questionable things, but her heart has always been in the right place. And now she's really conflicted over the fact that she might actually want to get to know people she's had no emotional investment in before, because all she saw was the bad stuff that they did. And ever since she had that nice time with Celia when her memory was wiped, and the fact that Celia's still making an effort now, even when she's got all of her memories back, really says a lot to Nancy. But isn't it that old trope that you say the best way to hide something from a detective is to put it right under their nose? And you're like, is Nancy missing the obvious here, that these people will always be bad people? Just like, maybe is she missing the obvious with S because it's right there and she doesn't want to change it or to investigate it? Or is she choosing to look away so that she can have a relationship with these people? And I think that really will play into her arc for, I don't know whether it's just the remainder of this season or the series, but heck of an arc, and I can't wait to see where it goes.
It is, and it's such a good parallel to what happened with Ace. Like, so in episode 12, his father doesn't notice that Grant is his son, and he wouldn't. But like when they have that ending scene, first meeting, and he says, "You look just like your mom," it's because his eyes open up to who this young man is to him. With Nancy, she didn't care about the Hudsons until she found out that she is one of them by blood, and now it's complicating things, it's muddling things, it's confusing her. And on top of that, she's a grieving young woman. She still misses her mom. Outside of Celia, now she didn't have a strong female figure in her life. I mean, there are her two dads, and that's about it. So I think it's nice for her to have an older woman who embraces her, who wants to see her, who talks about how nice it is that they get to sit down together. She's giving her a gift. She's making her feel welcome. She wants to be accepted by the Hudsons. And that's like a very complicated, complex, not great feeling. It doesn't even really quite make sense, but it's human. Like, even if she was the one who eventually like rejects them, she wants them to accept her. Not Everett, she don't care about Everett, but like Celia and I guess to some extent Ryan.
And Nick calls Ryan at the end. It's like, we lost her.
No.
Nick, you're a little dramatic. I mean, it just walked out with a beanie on. We haven't reached the full extent, but
what would Ryan have thought?
Yeah, I appreciate that you're on top of it, Nick.
It's so great. But he is quite the king of drama. Good for him, though. It's the type of thing they do here. What else happened in this episode? Odette. What do you want to do?
Odette. Okay, I quickly, before we get into Odette, because I feel like that's going to be an interesting conversation, I did want to talk about the scene on the dock between Nancy and Birdie. Like, that was like, where was Kennedy's Emmy? Like, that was, I was so moved. I was like, and like even the girl that played Birdie, I didn't look up her name, I'm so sorry, but she was amazing, stellar. Like
Mhm.
that, I was so moved by that speech that Nancy gave, and it brought home there's a common theme in each of the stories that Nancy gets to tell. Like all the mysteries that she solves, there's a underlying layer of trauma that she relates to, and I think with each one it helps her grow, and it helps her like relay the lesson to whoever she's helping. Like the episode with the college girl, like
Mhm.
that was another moving episode where she gets to talk one-on-one with somebody that she helped, and oh my god, that scene, I just love Kennedy, guys. Like that scene, blown
It,
away.
the emotional ramping up of that moment where like, it starts off as a way to connect with this young girl and then turns into basically the speech Nancy wants to give to herself.
Yeah. She's like
And
pleading, not just with Birdie, but like with herself. She's pleading. She's like, you like, just think about it. Just like listen to this. And it's like, Nancy, look in the mirror.
I know, and it's just like the fire souls are not the Hudsons. Like, it's not analogous, but it's just she's going through so much, and the ways in which the writers have her unpack her feelings with people, that thing, when you can unpack them with strangers in a way you can't
Mhm.
unpack them with your loved ones because it's just so raw and vulnerable. I love when it's like, you know what, we need to crack Nancy open, so let's write a whole story where she gets to do that towards the end with the person that she's helping that week. And Kennedy's like, I'm on it, I got it, I know the assignment. And she gives such a stellar performance. Again, the hidden gem of the CW, really and truly.
Amazing.
Okay, circle back to Odette. It's weird. It's weird, but why
Yeah.
am I kind of like down for the ride? Like I'm willing to ride it out. I'm not willing for them to like really lean into Bess falling in love or doing anything physical with Odette because I think
Mhm.
that crosses a line. That was I was kind of like, I don't know, I just enjoyed watching it. I thought it was fun. And I did kind of appreciate that George and Odette were like communicating.
Mhm.
I think it gave a different shade of the storyline because I think we were like fatigued of the switching. Like do something else, and they did something else, and I thought it was successful. But I as much as I was kind of okay with it in these episodes, I'm ready for them to find a solution.
Mhm.
I'm ready to see them
Yeah.
die.
Yeah, it definitely feels like they're running out of room to run on with the story. But I did say that it feels like by the end of the run, Odette and George will have found some kind of like common ground, whether she's a fully fledged member of the Drew crew, we'll say. But I'm glad that they finally have found that common ground. And it was kind of like downplayed, like it was as though it was that easy. And they're looking after each other, so to speak, and they're understanding each other now, which is nice. But on the other hand of it, then you have the actual conflict with how Odette seems to feel about Bess. And how will that line up with now that George has made a promise to Odette that maybe they can find her love as a ghost? So there's a lot of interesting dynamics, but I completely agree with you, Reed. I don't want to root for Bess and Odette, but they're doing such a good job of making you want to. You're there for them. You're invested in their friendship, relationship, whatever it turns into. But at the same time, you know it can't go any further than that. And I'm hoping that they don't make Bess do that because obviously she's come so far as a character, and that I don't want her to take that step backwards.
I don't know if I like the explanation that she gave where she was like, I'm just looking for something to fill a hole. And I'm like, I don't know if this has anything to do with the Marvins or Elizabeth leaving you. I think it's okay to have a weird crush on the ghost living inside your friend's body. Like, I don't know. Like, you don't need to make it a thing.
I think I feel a little differently, not necessarily that being the reasoning, but the awareness that Bess has. You don't really get her having scenes in which she talks about her destructive behavior outside of the kleptomania, because she's willing to talk about that. But like as far as like the emotional, um, she kind of shies away from it unless something terrible happens, which I guess she opened up when it happened to do with Elizabeth and leaving her at the table instead of going to go meet the parents like she was supposed to. So now, she says she makes bad decisions because she wants to be loved. And it's like, but you are loved by your friend group. I'm like, where's Ace? So we need he should have said it when she was
I
panicking the
know.
first time. Because they're her family. And I think that's where they need to land on. I mean, I'm sure it's nice though receiving those love letters from Odette and receiving Odette's attention, and when she hasn't really gotten attention outside of her family group. So I get that, but I just feel like we are running out of room when it comes to where the story could possibly go. So I am glad that George said, no, we'll try to find your lady love. We'll find the English woman. Does she have a name, by the way?
I can't remember. I think Odette has said it, but I don't remember if they've actually
used it. Mary?
I
think
it might have been.
It might be Mary.
Yeah, there's too many Marys on the CW.
But yeah, I think the Odette and Bess weirdness will go away soon. I too am weirdly kind of about it, like that in a line crossing way. Just the weird tension of it, the not the will they won't they, but navigating that line of, we're not really a friendship, we're not really a romance, but I like you and I want to spend time with you.
They found a way to get around, because these shows all the time, they have these friend groups and they all date each other, and we already kind of have that, but it's another way to add a different dynamic to two characters without really doing it, which I think they can get away with on a ghost show. And I think it's really original. Well, maybe it's not super original. I feel like somebody has to have done this before, but they're pulling it off really well to like mix up the dynamics, to be able to have Madison and Leah act together in a different way. It's fun. I'm sure it's a fun way for them as actors to perform differently. And even though we may not like it, I think it's still like fun to watch. Like, I don't want it to happen, but I'm like, I'm down. Like, this is exciting storytelling.
And we end episode 13 with Nancy didn't really go full Hudson like Nick was making it out to be, but
she put the beanie on. She speaks volumes with her beanies.
That's true, but she did also tell Nick that they're on the same side, and he was surprised by that, which was interesting. And I was like, she's probably gonna try to walk the line, and it's not gonna work. But she's not gonna abandon you, Nick, for the Hudsons. Not them of all people. Cecilia, you might have to watch out for, though.
Yeah, she's walking a moral tightrope between her friends and her new quote unquote family.
And she's willing to, make her friends not so happy about it. Or just like she's pushing Ace away because she doesn't want to hear about how Gil is not great for her. And she can't really handle the fact that Ace is mad at her. And he's like, I was like, girl, he don't even really tell you when he's bothered. And he's trying to express to you that like you're not making healthy decisions. She's like, I'm going to be unhealthy. It's just what's going to be.
Yeah. Was that scene between Nancy and Ace, was that in 13 where she's like, she doesn't really look at him and he's kind of like trying to like talk to her, and they like the way he walked away from her. I was like, oh, I know, I hate it, but I also like this is great content.
Excellent writing. Always cannot wait to see how this transforms as we move closer towards the end of the season. And I don't think we get the Nace in this season. The Nace is coming, but we shall see.
But I love the build up.
The slow burn, yeah.
It's delicious.
The tension. It's good.
Other CW shows, take note. Please. But that's it for what we're watching. And we don't have a toast this week. We do have
a toast Kennedy.
Oh, yes. Floor's yours.
Yes. Kennedy. Once again, girl. Hats off. Beanies off. I mean, I don't know what else I could say that I haven't already said, but yeah, she blew me away in episode 13.
She was incredible.
Masterclass. And just truly, I'm gonna love her in The Good Lawyer. Just
oh my god,
cannot wait. March 6th, get here faster.
Yeah.